So, I wanted to talk about today part of my framework, which I've come up with, that has the 5 stages of reclaiming yourself. And in those 5 stages, I essentially outline what you must go through if you want to come out on the other side as a better, more resilient version of yourself when you're in a difficult situation. And so I'm going to actually introduce the 5 stages, but at the same time apply them to my story in the most recent challenging experience that I had. So the first stage is, I call it either deprive or survive. Essentially, in this stage, it's like you're in a really bad place. You are just getting through the motions of the day. You're barely surviving. You're struggling with sleep, you're struggling with eating, you're struggling with just keeping up with your physical body. Maybe you're struggling going to work or not going to work at all, struggling getting out of bed. You're having like very intense physical and mental health symptoms at this stage because you're in a toxic situation. So, this could apply to a job, it could apply to a relationship, it could apply to a dynamic with a family member, it could apply to anything. In my case, the one I want to talk about is an abusive relationship that I ended up in. At the age of 36 years old, I never in my life thought I would end up in such a situation because I had never been in an abusive relationship before. So I didn't really know what the signs were. And I, even as a therapist, didn't detect the red flags as I should have. And so essentially, within about a month of being officially with this person, after coming out of a really bad mental health period in my life, getting a diagnosis, getting on the right medication, and just being in a very vulnerable place, even socially and with my family, this person just swept in and sold me the dreams, told me that I was the woman of their life and that they didn't judge me for my mental health issues and they accepted me as I was. And considering how low I was, like that was music to my ears. I truly didn't feel like I was going to find a partner who was going to accept these things about me because at the time I was still in my own shame spiral about where like I had just come out of. And so I was like, sure, if you think I'm the woman of your life, like I'm going to take your word for it. And it's like, yeah, like I'm in such a low point right now. So let's do it. And that's often how toxic relationships start, is that the person kind of can scope you out and tell that there are little gaps in your like strength and resilience department. Maybe you're more isolated, maybe you have financial difficulties, maybe whatever the case may be, because ultimately an abusive relationship is one where one person tries to have more power than you, and it's a power and control dynamic. So they want to have the upper hand. Anyway, so this relationship started, and before I knew it, this person convinced me to get pregnant. And I didn't used to want to have kids before. Um, it just wasn't something that was a priority for me. It wasn't something I dreamt of. And so I didn't really think I would get pregnant. I also had done fertility tests in the past and was told that there was a very low likelihood that I would get pregnant. So I just kind of like very irresponsibly got swept away into this person's dream that he was selling me and was like, sure, let's try, whatever. Like, if he wants to be with me and he really wants to have a child, that's okay. Like, let's try. I truly didn't think it was going to happen though. So, the universe, Miktub, which means destiny, um, decided that it was indeed going to happen. And so, within 1 month of trying, I was pregnant. I was shocked. I didn't expect it. I was excited, but of course, to me, this was a joint project, and it was something that I did not think I was going to be able to do on my own. So I was very fearful because of my mental health diagnosis that I could even do such a thing. But knowing that at least I had a partner who really wanted to do it with me was very reassuring. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this together. I'm a little scared. I'm a little anxious, but I'm on my meds. I'm stable. I feel like I can do this. So at this point, often this is what happens in sort of toxic relationships. Once the person kind of feels like they have you trapped, whether you got married or you got pregnant or some other type of way, you bought a house together, there's some type of way where you're kind of now trapped and more dependent on them. That is often when they will drop their mask. And what I mean by drop their mask is basically they will stop putting their act together like they're this amazing person who's like love bombing you and selling you all these dreams. And now they feel like they can kind of relax into their abusive ways. And it starts so subtly that you don't even realize it's happening. And for me, it was, the person drank a lot. They drank every single day. They drank a lot, which caused them to lose their inhibitions and then get really like Jekyll and Hyde type of thing, like just switch completely from the person who was like love bombing me and giving me all this love and attention to being truly like evil and like saying awful things and like being the polar opposite, like literally contradicting things that they would say, during the day when they were sober. It was a very confusing experience because for me, it was like, first of all, I'm pregnant. So what the hell is going on? Because we're supposed to do this together. But second of all, like, which one is the real you? And when you're in that situation for the first time, I really thought it was just the alcohol that was causing him to act in ways that were just erratic and not, not just really bad behaviors, which I later realized that that's not the case. It's just that the alcohol takes away the inhibitions and the mask even more. But at the time, I thought, okay, the problem isn't him, the problem is the alcohol. All this to say that I was in survival mode for the entire duration of the pregnancy. I was in deprive and survive. So I felt awful. When I look back at pictures during that time, I look so tired. I look so depleted. If you've ever been through something difficult, like a bad relationship or anything, look back at your pictures and you'll see like you just don't look well. Like I think the body just literally is inflamed and the stress hormones are through the roof, and physically you're just manifesting that. You don't I didn't see it at the time, but now when I look back at the pictures, I'm like, oh my God, like I was really unwell. Anyway, so I was in that situation, and of course, it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where this person, it used to be just verbal abuse, like just spewing hate and words at me when he was drinking, but then like not being that way at all when he wasn't drinking, and then being so nice and so supportive that I would like close my eyes to the times where it was unacceptable. But then it got to the point where I was 8 months pregnant. I had had the talk with him about like getting sober, about how we were supposed to do this as a team, about how I get scared when he drinks and I don't feel safe, about how I just really think it's important to get it under control because it's not a good environment to raise a child in. And he kept like saying that he was in agreement and that he would try to get sober, and then it would last a couple days and it would relapse all over again. Um so by 8 months pregnant, I lost the hope. Like I had the hope all along that this was going to get repaired, even though my therapist clearly told me it is very rare for somebody who has such a severe drinking problem to decide to change and stop. But I decided to hold the faith, of course. Um, and it didn't change. So at 8 months pregnant, it was like, okay, survive, thrive. It got to a point where I was going to medical appointments and they were like, you have gestational diabetes, the baby's heart rate is fluctuating, you're not taking your insulin, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not eating properly, like you're putting your baby's life in danger. What is going on in your life that is leading you to not being able to follow the doctor's orders? And that was the big wake up call for me. um, where it was that plus having a stressful job was too much. So that I think that same day I ended up giving a note to work saying I needed to stop working and start my brain isn't working. My maternity leave. Start my maternity leave earlier because I was barely able to function. And with the drama that was going on with him, like I kept having to call out of work or lie down because I wouldn't sleep, all sorts of stuff. So eventually I just did that, which was one thing taken care of, but there was still the stressful relationship factor. And eventually I did open up to them about it at the clinic because I was going weekly. And she was like, listen, lady, like your baby's health is at risk. Like you really need to do whatever you need to do to be safe. I also had a doula who was meeting with us. And at this point, I started to share with her what was going on and my fears about labor and delivery, and afterwards, considering like his drinking. So I was starting to see that clearly, like, this was not a good idea. I felt it everywhere in my body, but I was stuck in the survive, deprive mode. And the next stage, number two, is dive. That's when you finally take the plunge because you say to yourself, like, this can't be my life anymore. But I was stuck there for a very long time. And so at this point, I think when it really clicked for me was like a moment where I was having a conversation with him about his drinking and said, look, I really like this is getting out of hand, because the night before was another bad night. Um, and I said, this is getting out of hand. Like, are you going to stop drinking or not? And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, I will never stop drinking. I will never stop drinking. And in that moment, I clocked it and I believed him. And I was like, okay, point taken. Like, this is really what it's going to be like. And it became very clear to me. A couple days later, I had my sister threw me a surprise baby shower, and it was COVID time, so it was kind of on Zoom, but it was fabulous. It was amazing. So many people came, um, and all of these gifts were handed to us. And we had an empty apartment at the time because we had just moved into a two-bedroom apartment. We didn't have it furnished yet, but we had all these baby gifts all over the living room and the dining room area. So just boxes everywhere in an empty apartment. And like everything just became so real for me in that moment. Like he was sitting in the living room with his glass of wine, drinking it on top of a cardboard box while I was preparing for baby stuff. And I just remember walking out of my bedroom and looking at the scene of the baby boxes everywhere, of the the crib and the playpen and the all the little toys and the strollers. And I just remember looking at that scene and seeing him literally like in the middle of this drinking and not helping and saying, oh, like this is what it's going to be like. And so in that moment, I didn't say anything to him, but I decided in my brain, like, this isn't my life. There's no way I am bringing this baby into this world with this type of setup. I didn't know how I was going to leave him, but I knew I had to. And so I started seeking help online. I went on an app and started asking other moms, like anonymously, for some support. I found one person who ended up being a really good friend, who unfortunately I don't talk to anymore today. But at the time, she was like my rock and she really helped me get out of this situation. She was like a person that I didn't yet know, and she was online, but it really helped. I also was going to Al Anon meetings. I was talking to my therapist. All of these things were happening. And eventually, like one day, he and I just got into a little argument, and that's when I was done. And I was like, you know what? I don't want us to be together anymore. I want you to move out. I need to be calm and at peace when I have this baby. That's the top priority. I knew that like some part of me still wanted to repair things with this person because I didn't want to raise my baby alone. Um, I was terrified. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But I also knew that there was no way, like with the way things were going on a daily basis under the same roof, that these were the conditions under which I was going to deliver the baby or start the first few months with the baby. So that was my dive moment. That was my dive moment. I was like, you need to get your crap and get out. And it was really hard after that. I'm not going to get into the later stages of the five stages that I'm describing. I'll just name them, but I'm not going to like unfold my the whole rest of my story in this episode. But essentially, once I dove, like the hard work began because at this point, yeah, like you have to face all your fears and the reality that the decision you just made is going to have a significant impact on your day to day and on the outcome of your future that you had envisioned. And so the next step is stage 3, which is revive, where you're essentially putting one foot in front of the other, coming back to self slowly but surely, getting back to the basics, just trying to eat, trying to sleep, trying to regulate your nervous system because it's been under so much stress and trauma for a long time. So you're just working on grounding techniques and being okay. So that was me probably for the first, honestly, I would say maybe like 2 years after having my child, maybe even 3, because there was so much turmoil that went on during that time. But it took a very long time for me to get back to who I was and to feel like confident in my abilities to be a mom and to have it together and to heal from this narcissistic abuse, you know? So that was my third stage. And eventually you get to stage number 4, which is the stage I want all of you to get to, no matter what's going on in your life, which is thrive. And I feel like that's when I really started to thrive, which was about a year ago, where I was like on top of the world, feeling super confident. I got through the hardest times postpartum. And I was like, okay, like the sky's the limit. Like, what more do I want to do? I got my office, which I'm sitting in right now. I started seeing clients privately, close to home. I started going to the gym. I started my weight loss journey. I started to just really take care of myself, mind, body, and soul. And honestly, like I remember like looking at my life and going, oh my God, like I actually did it. Like whatever the hell went on is actually behind me. I survived it and now I'm thriving. I'm feeling good. I'm taking care of myself. I've never been better, actually. Um, Rebuilt my credit after a bankruptcy, just so many different things that started to go well for me, which I literally, if you would have told me that when I was 8 months pregnant about to leave him, I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have believed you at all. So that was the thrive part. And then the stage number 5, which is interesting, I came up with this last week actually, is called archive. It's the final stage. Archive is where you've processed the trauma, you've experienced the growth from it, you have locked in the resilience, you have thrived for enough time that your confidence is back and you far exceeded what you thought you were capable of, and you can actually take this chapter of your life and archive it. It's no longer at the forefront of your story. It's just something that's in the archives, which, of course, once in a while, things will trigger having to go back and review this part of your life for whatever reason. So you could pull it out of the archives, but you could put it right back in. And so you're essentially in the thrive, you're still in your thriving era, but you've archived that journey. Now, these 5 stages, we go through them multiple times in our lifetime if we're brave enough to get out of situations. And so, what I want to do is really help women go from stage one to stage two. I think stage one can take a really long time. It could be really discouraging. And there's a lot of stuff under the surface that has to happen where you're contemplating the change, but you're not yet ready to pull the trigger and enact the change. And that's the spot I love to support women at the most, because there's just a lot of things that are brewing under the surface that I know you're brewing for you under the surface that are going to lead to change. You don't see it yet, but it's happening. And I want to help you get from that survive, deprive stage to the dive stage and beyond, because you have no idea what's on the other side of that difficult decision. It is beautiful on the other side, and it takes a long time. But that's why I wanted to start this community, because I think women supporting women is such a critical thing. And if we have a community of us who are going through these things, who have gone through these things, then we can help other people go through them with more grace and faster and easier than we did when we were doing it all on our own. So, with that said, I'll wrap it up for today. And I'm excited to release some courses about my stages, and also to create this community of women where you can join and get the support that you want at a fraction of the price of having to go to therapy week after week. Thank you for listening to my story, and I will see you next time.